My name is Akshat Maini, and I'm currently a research assistant at the Institute of Chinese Studies, New Delhi. It is a matter of great pleasure to extend a warm and humble welcome to all to another edition of the ICS's Wednesday seminar titled Indian Films Resonate with Chinese Audiences, Translation of Culture, Translation of Mind. Hollywood, India's film industry based in Mumbai, is the world's largest film producer and has experienced a surge in popularity in China over the past decade. This seminar examines the growing influence of Indian cinema in China, identifying 5 key factors driving its appeal: compelling storytelling, strong social values, star-driven popularity, favorable audience reception, and cultural resonance. Iconic films such as Avara, Three Idiots, and Dangal have particularly struck a chord with Chinese viewers. The success of these films highlights the critical role of narrative quality and effective translation in expanding Bollywood's global footprint, especially in today's digital era of streaming platforms and social media. Moreover, while China and India are culturally distinct, Indian cinema often reflects the country's rich cultural diversity. This makes it a valuable bridge for cross-cultural understanding. In this context, Sino-Indian co-productions should embody a flexible two-wheel approach to collaboration, guided by initiatives such as China's One Belt, One Road and India's Act East policy. Both countries have taken steps towards greater cinematic cooperation. Such partnerships not only leverage the diverse cultural resources of each nation, but also foster economies of scale in film production. More importantly, they help break down linguistic and cultural barriers, demonstrating how Chinese audiences use Hindi films as a window into Indian society. The speaker for today's session is Dr. Suvro Parui, Associate Professor of Chinese Language at the Amity School of Languages, Amity University, Haryana. He holds a PhD in Chinese literature from Visva Bharati Niketan and specializes in national movements, Chinese literature, post-Mao discourse, and the translation of Chinese socio-economic texts. He has served as a senior fellow at the Vivekananda International Foundation and has held key academic roles at the Maulana Abul Kalam Azad Institute of Asian Studies, University of Calcutta, and Visva Bharati at Shantiniketan. Dr. Parui earned his BA and MA in Chinese from the Banaras Hindu University and has published extensively on Chinese culture, literature, and intercultural studies, including translations and articles on Rabindranath Tagore, the Renaissance, and more. Owing to unavoidable circumstances, Dr. Madhurendra Jha will not be able to chair the seminar today. We are extremely grateful to Professor Patricia Oberoi for stepping in at the last minute. And Professor Patricia Oberoi, as you all know, is an emeritus fellow at the Institute of Chinese Studies, New Delhi. She served as the chairperson of the ICS from 2015 to 2021. Her research interests center on aspects of family, kinship, gender, popular culture, and social policy with respect to both India and China. She is a co-author of the BCIM Forum and Regional Integration, published in 2012. At the ICS, she has been closely associated for several years with the Bangladesh-China-India-Myanmar Forum for Regional Cooperation, a track 2 dialogue focusing on development issues in the region stretching from Northeast Asia to Southwest China. Now, before I hand over to the chair, I would like to ask all participants to please follow a few housekeeping rules. All participants shall be muted during the seminar. Questions may be posted in the chat box along with your name and affiliation. Alternatively, you may also use the raise your hand option during the interactive session. You shall then be called upon to unmute yourself and ask your question. Thank you, and over to you, Professor Oberoi.
Well, thank you very much. I was looking forward to this particular seminar a great deal, and not so happy to be necessarily to be thrust into the chair all of a sudden, but it's really an unusual occasion, and I think a treat ahead of us. So I won't say any more at this moment, but look forward very much to hearing, perhaps seeing the presentation if you're going to have visuals, and starting the discussion. Thank you very much and looking forward to it.
Thank you, Akshat. Am I audible? Right? Okay. Thank you, Akshat. Thank you, Patricia ma'am, and the team ICS for giving me this opportunity to share my views on this cultural communications between China and India, as well as the film and other cultural aspects are concerned. So, as you know, my paper would be in the Indian films resonate with Chinese audience, the translation of culture, translation of mind. So, firstly, I would like to start with a disclaimer that I'm not a person of IR. So, whatever I have tried, that's on the basis of intercultural communication and cultural relations between India and China. So, this paper will be divided into 5 parts. The parts are the cross-cultural communication, India-China co-production, retains national identity independence, globalization and cultural globalization, cultural references, and cultural translation. To begin with, we have to very clear about the culture and translation for. So different nations have different cultures. And what is culture? To put it simply, culture refers a dynamics of the people. So this simple definition implies that culture is a pattern of customs, traditions, social habits, values, beliefs, and language of the society. Language and culture are closely related to each other as culture is diverse entity. And the understanding of these foreign words or expression is not a very easy task. And these words may contain some cultural connotations and obviously mirror some cultural features and particular blends. And therefore, it is very difficult to translate them correctly. So there we face the intranslatability. And so by exploring the relation between culture and translation, we should know the translation approaches of semiotic equivalence, pragmatic equivalence, and when it translated into other word, for the other word. And when it comes to the relation between culture and translation, so the purpose and the characteristics of translation are to promote understanding among different countries and the nations. So that means to connect people to people from other world. So as Nida, we can echo the Nida's voice. A famous American translation theorist defined translation as the translation consists in reproducing and the receptor of language the closest natural equivalent of the source language. First, in terms of meaning. Secondly, in terms of style. However, to reproduce the closest natural equivalent, the nearest equivalent in the target language is more or less influenced by the cultural differences. Because of the difference in histories, geographical locations, local customs, and rituals, understanding, and religious belief, etc., there are some translation obstacles, as I discussed, the intranslatability, which hinders people from understanding each other properly. So here's the gap and which is the very beginning of the. So the translation is not only involving translators or interpretations linguistics competence, but also calls for acquaintance with respective cultures. In this sense, the translation means more than merely translating words, sentence or articles from source language to the target language. It means also transfer of culture. So when we talk about culture and translation from a same parameter, so we call it as a cultural translation. For the first time, the word cultural translation appeared in the market, that is 1985, as a phenomenon of 改革开放. And it is about what people do or are supposed to be done. In order to understand and accept other people and other cultures, the broadest sense of the word. According to the mental land, that's the cultural translation of the traditions, inscriptions, and institutions of culture and societies urgently needed in today's world, where different ideologies, different modes of being and different modes of living and acting are becoming more and more of the gradual visible and often lead to divisions and conflict. The insights of the culture translation can help to overcome these socio-political problems. But ultimately, the culture translation is about understanding ourselves and developing ourselves by interacting with others. And that now before we go into the deep, so firstly, I would like to say that China holds its ranking in the 27th in the 2020 Soft Power 30 Index, a testament of the strength and resiliences of its soft power assets. The emerging global power has been facing a geopolitical challenges on multiple fronts over the past few years, with the recent phenomena of country's global image for the shift to its soft power dominance and future trajectory. According to the recent report, China achieved second position in the index with a score of 72.8 out of 100, achieving its highest position to date and surpassing West for the first time. This improvement can be attributed to a strategic effort to enhance its goal and global image, including the BRI infrastructure project and renewed focus on sustainable development, stronger product brands, and the country's reopening for the foreigners. India has long been known its prestigious film industry, namely the Bollywood and presently Mumbai, remains the largest producer of film in the world, with a growing global outreach of Indian cinema. So this seminar looks at the integrating Indian films fever over the last decades in the newly discovered market in China. The thematic analysis identified the following 5 appealing factors which explain why the Chinese enjoy Indian films. It's first, content-driven story, social values, star power, audience reviews, and the cultural connection. The nature of the Indian film industry is such that it has become a vehicle for the cultural diplomacy. Following the end of the Chinese Cultural Revolution, China looked to the Indian films as a source of entertainment. They needed some kind of escapist melodrama which interested the Chinese audience. The Chinese film industry at the time offered very little in the name of entertainment. So in 1978, China decided to open for its other world. That's a reform movement. Reform opened a door for the others, an economy, and began to open for the rest of the world. This coincided with the time when there was a decline in the number of Indian films being released in China, as Hollywood began to make its mark in the country. The beginning of Indian film success in China dated from the 1951. Like Liu Lancha, as we know, that's the Awara, directed and produced by the starring RK Production, a legendary icon of Indian film industry. The story follows a life of a young woman, Raj, as he become entangled in a life of crime. A mainstream of the golden age of Indian cinema in its exploration of themes such as destiny, justice, and mortality. Awar became a symbol of new nation building in a post-independent India. In India, cinema is very near to the lives of the people, or we can say that it is the heart of the people. So people think, people cry according to our society. So it's just a reflection of society, socio-political aspect. So Awar become a symbol of the new nation building in a post-independence India. In India, cinema is very near to the lives of the people, or we can say that it is in the heart of the people. The large screen provides an alternative, an escape from the reality, a day-to-day life. People cry, laugh, sing, dance, and enjoy emotions through cinema. The cinema of India comprises of film made from corner to corner in India. Film has huge acclaim in nation. So upward of the 1800 motion pictures in the various languages are framed consistently. The quality of movies made and quantity of tickets are selling. So Indian film is viewed as the world's biggest film industry with profound respect to the quality of movie and quantity of the movie it produces and the working inside the film government. So as far as the India-China relations is concerned, both China and India possess more than 1 billion population with the multiple ethnic groups, and they both, for the history of the civilization is concerned, it has the billion population with multiple ethnic groups. They both have passed the history of invasions, by Western powers, and then gone through a hardship of achieve independence after the Second World War. As two of the world's largest developing countries, while inheriting their own traditional culture, they also inevitably experience strong impact from other cultures, and they face dilemmas of tradition, modernity, and inheritance, and the transformation, as well as the exclusiveness and inclusiveness. Keeping the trajectory of Sino-Indian cultural exchange in short, I simply jump into the first half of the 20th century. Very precisely, the national independence movement was surging, and there was a large number of people who made outstanding contribution for this bilateral cultural exchange, such as Thanin, Tagore, etc. The cultural interaction continues to move forward after the independence of two countries, for the reason that their cultural similarities, such as the pursuit of harmony, natural way of life, humanity, have established the value-based cooperation, whereas the differences in culture also provide possibilities for the complementation and integration. Construction of soft power is one of the key elements of this today's talk. As far as IR is concerned, it is a multidimensional, and diplomacy is applied part of the IR, or you can say the key to manage, or to say key for the maintaining global good terms with your international neighbor. And neighbors are always the blessings of geopolitics. You cannot choose your neighbor, so it's the blessings of geopolitics. Cultural interaction and the geopolitics are intertwined, and it is one of the key aspects in enhancing countries' soft power in the international community. The theory of soft power, as proposed by American scholar Joseph Nye, who has brought this concept on the table, connecting that Asia's ancient cultures such as art, fashion, gastronomy has profoundly affect their parts of the world for the centuries. In the view of historic period, being increasingly open and liberal for the foreign cultures, China and India urgently desire to rejuvenate their abundant local culture and to strive for transform their high-quality cultural resources into a soft power of the state. The same approach has been in the story of Vincent Hediger, as he is the expert of cinematic studies. The cinema goers must be able to relate what is happening on the screen to what is going to in their life. So, the origin of Indian cinema can be tracked back to the late 19th century and early 20th century. During that time, the content of short films and documentaries produced in India primarily reflected the daily life of Indian citizens. Natural landscapes and significant political events and stage performance were there. So Awara, Mera Joker, these are the most remarkable element of art production in the list of movies, and that Chinese fall in love with. In the 80s, Caravan was imported in China, also gaining huge success. Then in recently Lagan, Three Idiots, or Sankar Shakwa, or the Dangal, Shuaja Papa, released nationwide in China, and other Amir Khan's hits have continued to serenade Chinese audiences. A mega hit of Dangal in China easily tells the importance of Bollywood movie and its translation that that not only retains the legacy and entertainment part, but also helps in the generating a global presence with maximum revenue. Despite the long history of cultural exchange between China and India, the portrayal of China and the Chinese characters can be hardly found in Indian films. And equally, there are so few Indian characters in Chinese movie. With the rapid development of digitalization and the emergence of social networks and streaming platforms, audiovisual translation, or we say AVT, has become one of the most prolific expressions of global communication in today's world, which able to overcome the linguistic barriers when disseminating culture across the world. So besides this, the simple dance performance has significantly impacted Chinese audience, with many Chinese audience becoming interested in Indian culture, Indian song, and Indian languages. In addition, Bollywood style dance has become more popular in China, with many dance studios offering classes in this Bollywood style. So one live streaming in WeChat app and many others live streaming performers were found to dance in Indian songs. including the Bollywood Punjabi, the Punjabi hits, the South Indian films, etc. Some critics argue that the popularity of foreign films in China threatens Chinese culture, with some even calling for a ban of foreign films. However, others argue that the exchanging cultural ideas is beneficial and can lead to a greater understanding and appreciation for other cultures. Besides Hollywood, Bollywood has been countering the Chinese movie going public for the last few years to become main player in the market. A series of blockbusters world premieres held in Beijing, where Dangal won Asian viewers heart, especially Chinese. In a country where the female audience is in the majority, it was not surprising that AKP's production, that's AK's production, AKP, or I would say the AKP production, tales of females empowerment brought in the big box office. Another release that helped in fixing Bollywood's position in China was Secret Superstar, a social drama of 14 years old Indian girl aspiring to become a singer. That shocking beat the mega budget Star Wars installation. From the journey from Yash Raj Films to AKP Productions, for some reason, indeed a nostalgia for the older generation of Asia. People who grew up in the first wave of cinematic imports from subcontinent use these films to reminiscence about their first contact with the foreign cultures. But what really closed the deal is that now Bollywood companies starts signing revenue sharing agreements with Chinese distributors, and 41,000 cinemas spread across Asia, 30% in China, and this creates a win-win situation for the parties involved. There is a data which shows there is a sine wave, and the wave is basically uprising, not declining. So the theatrical release in cinema and all these movies has released in excess 10,000 screens, though there have been notable flops in the Chinese market, Bahubali, Sultan, but still there are trend and numerous movies being released in China, and interesting statistics are visible through this endeavor that good international content sells in China. So keeping this data in a backdrop, so one can clearly establish that the good movie that is theatrically released in China can easily go on to the market anywhere between 150 million to 150 US dollar to 250 million US dollar and more during its life cycle in China. All the leading Hollywood studios have historically been releasing their movies in China, and they continue to do so for this season. So, as we say, the secrets, as I discussed the data, the Secret Superstar opened opening INR. Hello. Okay. So it's just a weekend in China. The movie had drawn close to $120 million, surpassing the sales of movie like Star Wars, Last Jedi, Bajrangi Bhaijaan, etc., which was released in China, went out to collect around $45 million. And the same goes with Hindi medium, which went approximately $30 million. And the last count movie, Dangal, has made its approximately $200 million from its Chinese release. Coming to recent release, HYI has already crossed $18 million. And counting, this is the power of theatrical releases in China. All movies have released in excess of 10,000 screens, though there have been a roller coaster ride for the cinema market like Bahubali and Sultan. Among others, 2018 has started the trend of numerous movies being released in China, and interesting statistics has been given to you. So these figures tells us a very interesting story to let review this and dig into deeper. So culture is a significant aspect which shapes cognition, and thus the individuals perceive and understand the world, and thus they connects the dots. What connects? The best thing about those films are emotional connectivity that managed across the Asian audience. This kind of promotional content which those films have. And other side of contemporizing the characters or the protagonist, Chinese people, they do have respect for the family values and people going against all odds and making things happen for themselves. These are the extracts that connects so well to the Chinese audience that pave the way blockbusters. So besides that, There are some other factors like acceptance of protagonist. This was one of the first time for the Bollywood to step into in China, where it is shown child protagonist with a strong woman-centric theme. But the team AKP Production of India, who has taken the pain to go China and spend weeks and months in studying Chinese sentiment and delivering the psychological insights, relating to its content, build right relationship, and then ensure that the film was pitched well amongst the Chinese audience. Those efforts, time, and sense of connecting people. As far as the market in terms of Chinese people are concerned, so far it reached 609 to 809 million people in China. It's a huge country and the ratio is not very big. Still, the percentage of the audience is a good start. And it is the way to get bigger and bigger with the time. It is the benchmark that Bollywood wants to keep a strong hold on Chinese market. Now the trend is to look the genre that go beyond the conventional. One thing on top of it, and that is emotional connection, because there are lots of action films in China. There may be there are many comes China from Hollywood, but it is expected that the films must be in Indian centric. The culture should be Indian culture centric, because Indian culture has different appeal, and the present call is for the wider appeal, along with the support of superstar, as well as because it is not the case someone will do the promotion, someone will do the marketing, doing so connectively, the connective effort and the connectivity is the required. So the threads need to be emotionally connected and need to be kind of subject that has pan-Asian appeal. These above mentioned films, as I said, the mentioned film that I just spoke about also worked for China because all of them had pan-Asian appeal. On the other way, China always supports for music, sports, and other activities which has some cultural feeling, cultural sentiments, and cultural aspects. Bollywood movies encapsulate all these elements, and that work well for China. So here I would like to bring a quote from the youth of this area of China. Basically, I would like to take the quote from a youth on this talk. That's a 印度电影充满灵感，它让我们相信梦想的力量。特别是印度电影的音乐演奏活泼，目标导向。因此，为了取得成功，一个人必须把目标放在第一位，并诚实感受目标对成功的现实意义。So Indian films are full of inspiration. It made us believe in power of dreams, especially the musical elements of Indian movies are so lively, and it is a goal-oriented. So for achieving success, one must put his goal first and should try to feel that it reality. Then only the goal is been achieved. And that goal will take you to success. The status of, in conclusion, I would say the status of Indian cinema in China has shifted with the political climate, enjoying doubts of immense popularity before falling out for favor, only to reemerge years later. The nature of film industry is such that it has become a vehicle for cultural diplomacy, but the relationship serves as a clear indication of how good storytelling resonates across borders, adapting to the unique landscape of each country and society. More importantly, it showcases the shared nature of human experience across different cultures and highlights the similarity across seemingly different people. Before I conclude, I would like to define the title of my story, because as I mentioned, there's a translation of culture, translation of mind. So mind and culture are concepts that, while seemingly distinct, are deeply intertwined when it comes to translation. It refers to the process of understanding and adapting the cultural elements, moving beyond simply to consider the cultural context, worldview, and the social norm. It is all about bridging the gap between different linguistics and cultural words, fascinating and fostering mutual understanding and cooperation. Thank you.
Professor
Great.
Oberoi, could you
Yes.
please unmute
Yes,
yourself?
I'm unmuted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, and I'm sure everyone found it very interesting. Akshat, would you like to say if there are any questions in the chat box we can begin with?
Certainly, ma'am. As of now, we are still waiting for questions, for people to put their questions in the chat box. In the meanwhile, may I please request you for your remarks on today's presentation? Thank you.
Well, I had lots of thoughts of a not very coherent thing. First, I'd like to ask how you sourced your data. Can you tell us about that?
May I?
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, ma'am, it's firstly this all about my last visit to China, where we have been there in a movie where people, a different community from Indian students were there, and at the same time there are other students who are learning Chinese. I simply make them question ki, do you know anything Indian? Or any Indian culture, what you like? They simply said, I like the Bollywood movies, and why? Then said that I like the Punjabi song, very frankly speaking, and why? So they said that there is a connectivity which talks about your mind, which talks about the emotion, which talks about how you feel like. So that's why I did the quote about some Chinese youth.
So did you attend many of these films with showing when there were Chinese audiences? Did
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
you
Yes.
observe that in person?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
And what do they do when they see a good film? Do they whistle, shout, stamp, or
Basically,
groan, or weep?
okay. When they see a Chinese film, they simply do. If we talk about the big screen, they simply try to imitate the song or try to imitate the dance. And if they are watching it at their home, they simply go and back, rewind, and review. So whatever comes to their mind, they keep on jot down and ask what is the meaning oriented. And they simply, if they don't want the meaning, they simply go with the beats, which connects people and which keep a hold on.
So would anyone from the audience like to come in at this point?
Professor Oberoi, we have one question in the chat box. With your permission, may I please read it out?
Go ahead.
So Mr. Nazar Khan has asked the question, what are the foreign revenues of India and China from films?
If I tell, sorry, foreign revenue as far as the foreign revenue is concerned, previously ratio was bit down, but nowadays China has fixed a ratio for a particular percentage that goes to Chinese company, and that other things goes to Indian company. So there is a particular ratio. I'm not going to very detail about that, but there are ratio sharing. That's why there is a bit hustle in this process. As you can see, after Dangal, there is another film Na Cha will be premiere in the China after few days. So there will be some negotiation basically for the both India and China both.
Okay, from the audience then, any comments? Anyone like to comment here?
Am I audible? I don't know.
Yes,
ma'am.
Please come in.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you so much for this very interesting presentation. I was just wondering, because the few movies that you have mentioned and what we have seen is that there is this very strong cultural connect. Like, they are able to resonate with the stories.
Yes, ma'am.
As you were saying, the powerful narrative. Like in Dangal, if it was, if we were dealing with not with two girls but boys, and their kind of how the father has trains his girls, and whether that kind of cultural similarities, and in Three Idiots how the education system has become in both the countries. So I don't know if you've looked at this cultural connection where both the people are going through similar kind of social issues, and perhaps that is the reason that Indian movies resonate with them more, or is it because they have a certain impression about Indians that, oh, Indian society is still going through these issues and we should look at them with a more, something that with a more compassionate, or do they make an impression about Indian society through these movies, or is it because of the cultural connect that it resonate with them? Like, I'm just wondering aloud.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It is all about the connection that makes people together. And secondly, the building a cut narrative. So what narratives are there? It's all about the cut narrative, to set a new narrative for the new society, new era. And of course, there is a women empowerment that Chinese talked about. That there is a in everyone's mouth. The women-centric, women empowerment, and the goal orientation.
I think another question in the chat box has just been answered by that, but you might like to expand. From Abhinav Kumar from CCSEAS, he wanted to ask, what are the common cultural values in the movies of both countries? Would you like to spell them out? At the moment, we've only had one. I mean, the family. Is there anything else that strikes a Chinese audience? Can it be about love? Can it be about marriage? Can it? Tell us what they actually get hung up on.
It's all about, thank you, ma'am. It's all about the family values, family system, and the cultural dots which connects people. I again say, always emphasize the family values and people going against all odd and making them happen for themselves. So these are the extracts that connects people of China and India both together.
I saw Kishan Rana had raised a hand here. Kishan, would you like to come in as someone who has worked a great deal on soft power and all its potential? But is this about soft power? Is this talk about soft power, or how would you put it?
Patricia, my question is a little bit different from what you mentioned. And I must confess that during Suvro's talk, I was a little bit distracted because of house obligations. So if you have covered these points already, please forgive my what shall I say, my negligence. But I wanted to ask, first, have there been any other great Indian film successes like The Three Idiots? And second, what do you see as the prospects for collaborative making of films between Indian and Chinese filmmakers? Thank you very much.
Yes, I think that's a very important question to answer. There must have been collaboration to get anything up and started and in the works. But what do you ever know about the nature of the collaborations, where they are, how they're, the politics of them? I mean, everywhere film producers are quite difficult people. Cinematographers, have their problems. The scripts have to be passed by governments. How do these things work? Just give us an idea.
As far as the Kishan sir's question, I would like to tell a very short about that. It's all about cross-cultural communication. It's to connect people and understanding the foreign culture through their own. And as far as second part of the question is concerned, I don't have much idea about the revenue sharing and the collaboration effort. Of course, there are some collaborative projects are going on, because Ramayana has various how would I say? There's many other folds for Ramayana available. And few days back, there was Ramayana staged in some different taste. I would say the different perspective of Ramayana has been portrayed few days back in China. I think that's my take. But still, there are some cultural competence which Chinese are looking for.
Right. And you
Thank
talked about cross-cultural, but I'll let Kishan come in a minute. But it's at the moment and that's what you're claiming to do too, you're only looking at the Chinese audience for Indian films, right?
Yes.
When you talk about cross-cultural, you often mean a two-way track. Now, what is the reception and what are the Chinese films here that have been blockbusters, or how have they operated? It's a one-way sort of traffic.
Yeah.
That you're talking about.
Yes. You want me to answer, ma'am?
Why not? And then come back to
Okay. Firstly, I think it though it should be the two-way process, but considering this seems like a one-way. But let's see what happens, because there is another film to be released in India after a few days. And though it's animation, I think that's going to set a milestone for this collaboration. If I talk about that, since there's a Hindi translations are available, I don't know whether it has been done in China or in India. That we need to figure out how the collaboration could be done, or if it is somewhere, how can it be increased that way.
back to Kishan. You wanted to add?
No, but Patricia,
Yes.
thank you very much. For the moment, I don't have any question as such, but clearly a great deal of more work is needed on this subject, and perhaps one of your own students, sir, or anybody else in the ICS family could take this up as a project, as a specific project to be pursued, because it is worth examination. Thank you very much.
Okay, who else would like to come in?
Professor Roy, we are still waiting for, we've got one question and one raised hand from Professor Thampi.
Right.
Professor Thampi, may I please request you to unmute yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, Madhvi.
Okay. Thank you, Suvro, for this interesting talk.
Thank you, ma'am.
I just wanted to sort of have a couple of questions to introduce the a comparative element here. Like, how does the reception of Indian films compare with that of films from other countries in China? In other words, how do Chinese, what are popular films from other countries? Which are the countries whose films are popular in China, sorry. And a second question is, like, what are the kinds of Chinese films that have been the biggest hits? I'm asking this question to see whether what makes Chinese films popular, is it comparable to what has made some Indian films popular? I mean, what can you see a correlation between the big Chinese hits films and the Indian films? That's what I mean.
Shall I?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Nice. That's a very important question indeed. So I would like to put these three questions in two different ways. Like, first is comparison. As far as the comparison is concerned, what Chinese like Indians and Indian movies, that is the family values and the Indian songs and the value system, I would say, and the connectivity with the family. Second thing, it about what we feel like Chinese. That's all about the animation first after Japan. That is the Chinese animation and the singing part, basically the musical or instrumental part, and that we should hire from China. And as for going to the last second part, that what we can compare, right, ma'am? Hello, Akshat, am I audible? What was
my second question was, the things that make Chinese films big hits in China, are they also, do they reflect these same, kinds of values that you are talking?
Sometimes Chinese movies have some, as particularly in drama or the classics, they have the family values, they have the socio-economical aspect, but at the same time, mostly are coming from Hollywood, the action movies or the Star Wars, what kind of things that are basically imitations or influenced by Hollywood, not as such.
Thank you.
Someone else would like to come in?
Yes, Professor Roy, we've got a question in the chat box. It's a follow-up question by Mr. Abhinav Kumar. He asks, apart from the official movie screening in both the countries, how is the internet also playing an important role? For example, until last month, there were few Chinese movie sites and Chinese audiences can consume different kinds of movies with Chinese, I think, subtitles. Dr. Parui?
Yeah. Firstly, I would like to put some kind of remark that as far as the movies are concerned, they are different in genre, but subtitling is an issue which cannot be subtitled totally. As far as my first part of the presentation is concerned, is an untranslatability, which cannot be translated entirely. So there we need a kind of equivalent, nearer or equivalent translation. And that's the thing. And the second thing I would like to put in record that there are limitations. Whatever in India, that everything is not available in Chinese social network due to these limitations and government policies. They don't have access to everything as same as we have.
Anyone else anxious to come in or in the chat box? I can ask a rather simple-minded question. That one of the phrases you used was that the films increase knowledge of India. Would you say that, I mean, the films are definitely an insight into some Indian values, but are they true to life? They're not, or are they Indian fantasies? Is that what you're interested in?
Firstly, there are true lives. Firstly, if we talk about the rural life, there are true lives, but according to which market eats, which is sellable in the market, that way they put on blending, put on permutation, combination in it, and so make it sellable. Everything is everything, whatever is screening, it's not actual, so is not accurate as far as the culture is concerned. So they try to put it sellable, put it acceptable for the people, and that's the thing.
Would you like to give an example of that? I mean, how do they sanitize it, Indian films Chinese way?
Indian film Chinese way, some part they simply cut, ma'am, or through the translation, proper transliteration or the proper exemplifying. That way they do the sanitization process of the film. Not only if you talk about the screening, they simply omit the part, or if you talk about the subtitling, they simply do the transliteration the nearest equivalent, that way, which have the cultural reference. Keeping the cultural reference intact, they put the transliteration or the nearest equivalent.
Now, you did mention Punjabi films in China.
Punjabi, yeah.
Only songs and dances. So I was going to ask, there are other film
Yeah.
industries in India, besides Bollywood, and some of them have an immense appeal in other
Yeah.
parts of the world.
Yeah.
Is that the case with in China also? Tamil cinema.
General, they put the heroic character or some dialogue as it is. They they just simply ask what is the meaning, firstly, and they try to imitate the thing. And as far as Punjabi hits are concerned, it's all about the simply ratify. Not going to the meaning. The beats, that's the most concern rather than this.
And what about the martial arts, I mean, fight scenes or martial arts? Sort of spoken of one.
Yeah, some dance steps are there which they feel equivalent to martial arts. All other the mudras and the gestures that they feel like equivalent with the martial arts that way. There we need the expertise to define them. What is it actually? Yes, ma'am.
So the other regional cinemas are not present in China very much. Is that right?
Not. Yes.
Have you an explanation for that?
I think, ma'am, it's all about the connectivity. Maybe their focus is particular thing, but some particular aspect of the society or some particular area which appeals them most. Because lastly I have I heard from somewhere they are going to portray some Satyajit Ray's movie with Chinese subtitling. I don't know. They might be feeling comfortable with this content of Satyajit Ray. Yeah.
Another question from Abhinav Kumar. Would you like to read it out, Akshay, or ask him for it?
Not audible.
Akshat, please unmute yourself.
Again, I'm sorry.
My apologies. Dr. Parui, we have got a question from Mr. Abhinav Kumar, and he asks you for your comments on the film O Khoobsurat Yaoshan.
I have to go through first for this O Khoobsurat Yaoshan. I never watched all these because I have very limitations about Chinese films. Rather than I only prefer to be Chinese singing part. Chinese film I have not seen much, so I need to be.
So I just want to mention one thing because Suvro just mentioned about the Ramayana production. Are you talking about Chinchan-shan's production recent?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So actually, that was required by the embassy, and like because Ambassador Rana was talking about collaboration, so the embassy had asked her to create a dance drama, which is on Ramayana, and it was based on Bharatanatyam and little bit of other art forms, and then she just created that. You were saying that it's a slightly different version, so it's very interesting to see that how the Chinese version. You can't say exactly Chinese version because she's a Indian classical dancer, and it's her how she's interpreted it, obviously with the help of the embassy cultural section, also cultural council and their support. But yes, it's a very interesting take that how the same story has been presented differently. I was also wondering that because Patricia ma'am was talking about translations and how do they attract and how do the people then are attracted to it's not just a storyline, because I was looking both at Dangal and Three Idiots, the Chinese dubbing. And I don't know, somehow I found it very interesting. The dubbing itself was done so well, because most of the time we are not very happy with the Hindi dubbing. Most of the Chinese movies and English movies, when they dubbed into Hindi, we would rather prefer to watch an original or with subtitles. But the Chinese dubbing was very interesting. It was done so well. Especially, I remember the Dangal movie in the beginning when the wife was trying to have a son, and different people were telling different ideas for her to go through it and then have a son. So including the cow and giving the cow in for some direction. So all that whole part was dubbed by very interesting voices which was matching so well with the Indian characters. And I this also reminds me of the dubbing of Sholay, and Hema Malini speaking Chinese in such a already Hema Malini is speaking very fast in the movie, and the dubbing has done so much of justice by bringing in a voice which speaks equally fast or maybe faster than Hema Malini. So I think the dubbing is not so simple. The voices are selected very intelligently, and all the dubbings that I have seen of 3-4 movies that I'm talking about. So I think that also plays a very important role in making it both attractive and also resonate it with the Chinese audience, that they can connect to the dialogues and also the character. Yeah, so
Yes,
just
ma'am.
a point I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
More than a point, it's a very useful observation, very useful, I think, because I'm not sure that things go so well. Dubbing into Indian languages or English is not all that well done in India, I don't think. But anyhow, yes. So one question I'd like to ask again, there are films made, Indian films made about China. Are they many of them one can't imagine be popular in China? But what do you know about that side of the position?
That I don't have really much idea, but I read your article about this Chandni Chowk to China, that you mentioned some particular part, which I forget, basically, in your article. Yes.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
No, but there are so many which they have dreadful stereotypes of the Chinese, more or less dreadful. So, but on the other hand, Chinese talk to China might be different. And my son-in-law was a cameraman for that. So they were very well, their story was they were very well received, very well looked after, and really enjoyed the whole experience. And they thought the Chinese crews were extremely professional and rather contrasted them with Bollywood.
True.
Professor Roy, we do not have any more questions in the chat box for the time being.
Sorry?
We do not have any more questions in the chat box for the time being. I'm sorry, ma'am, would it be possible if maybe I could ask a question?
Of course. Make it long.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Dr. Parui, I would like to borrow a little from what Ambassador Rana was talking about some time ago, the aspect of collaboration between India and China. And I remember not so long ago, I was watching a film from 1970 called Tora Tora Tora. It's a Japanese American production. And it was one of the first joint US-Japan production after the Second World War. And what was a very important factor about this film, but often overlooked, is the aspect of reconciliation that goes with this film. How they come upon and deal with such a sensitive topic. And I was wondering, and please pardon my lack of understanding about film studies as such, but would you say that there are possibilities, or let's say hindrances, to collaboration which could ultimately lead to reconciliation, to at least better relations between India and China? Could you please share your thoughts on that? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Akshat. It's indeed a good question to answer. But connecting to your point that yes, there are challenges and there are hopes. So we have both the sides. should come forward. So if Indian part or Indian film industry go ahead and Chinese don't come up, it's not. So both the side have some compromises, have to come forward with some mutual cooperation sort of thing, or you can say the for agreeing on a common point. Until unless it's happened, then there is no such. But still, there are hope, because some in Chinese are in touch with us, of our friends, those who are actually doing the survey of keeping the Chinese film in Indian subtitles. But the problem is, if we talk about only the Hindi subtitles, there are regions in India which they don't speak Hindi much. So limited subtitle is one of the issues.
Now, I think you had some comments in the beginning about Hollywood movies in China, just as a foil. But what about other Asian movies or television serials and so on like that from Japan, from Korea? I think the whole world is amazed at the impact of many Korean films, serials, and so on. How do they fare in China?
Yes, ma'am. Korean films have impact on China. I think there are the two things which goes by heart, or which goes through mind. If we talk about minds, it's all about the Hollywood movies or the action films and all. If we talk about the connecting to the mind or connecting the heart of the people, it is the Indian film and Chinese film. Because when you... Yes, ma'am.
You're talking about the emotional connect that comes between India.
Korean and Indian films which connect people from their heart.
And you think Korean films have the same?
Same, yes, ma'am. Yes.
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 Yeah. Okay.
The same feeling Chinese have for the Indians and Koreans.
And what about Japanese?
That I don't know much, because limited.
And also you were talking about Chinese films, presumably as made in Mandarin, but what about, Hong Kong movies and that sort of thing? To be
Hong Kong have their different aspects, which are basically the Hollywood style, or the kung fu, or the normal kind of based towing the guidelines or towing the basic elements of Chinese culture. They try to portray some Hollywood elements in this. They keep on blending and they portray according to their needs for the generation of this current era. That way. Yes, ma'am.
So are there any more comments coming? Anyone else like to come in and speak?
Ma'am, we currently do not have any more questions. May I please invite you to present your closing remarks?
Well, I've made so many remarks in the course of this. I think what you've done is you've opened a field which is very interesting. It has
Thank you, ma'am.
Multiple dimensions. It poses a lot of questions, I mean, about from methodology to sources to data to and so on. But it certainly deserves a great deal of observation, understanding, and further work. I just hope that you will carry on this work, because it's interesting from many points of view. It will be interesting to Chinese people and interesting to India, and then so much that that might be debatable and problematic and politically difficult. I mean, as I said, the portrayal, the Indian film's portrayal of Chinese is not mostly very attractive. So, well, will anything ever be done? Will you ever have a Chinese glamour girl as a film star? Will you ever have a wonderful kung fu person to really show you the moves? All these things are a long way off in translating cultures, I think. But I think you've laid out, laid out a ground, and you've, I'm sure, aroused lots of thoughts from the audience, and you've also given people something to think about going forward. It's a very fertile field, and I hope you'll go on with it.
Professor Parui, with your permission, Dr. Parui, if you've got any final remarks to make, thank you so much. Professor Roy, moving forward, may I please request your permission to bring today's proceedings to a close?
You're talking to me.
Yes, Professor Roy. I was just seeking permission to your permission to bring today's proceedings to a close.
Of course, I think it was a very rich meal, and in many ways inspiring to all of us, and it certainly opens up. I mean, opens up much more that could be done by people here and by people in China, and in hopefully a collaboration. I mean, why can't we sort of think of designing some program or meeting which would, answer the questions, or which would be bilateral, and therefore take things to a new level of understanding. I don't know if it can be done, but it certainly tickles the imagination. So thank you for tickling the imagination, and thank you, Akshat, for your introduction and all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And ladies and gentlemen, with this, we come to the end of today's seminar, very fascinating seminar. We thank Dr. Parui and Professor Roy for gracing today's seminar with their presence and for granting us their precious time. The video of today's discussion shall be available on the ICS's YouTube channel. The ICS conducts seminars every Wednesday, and further information regarding the topics can be found on the ICS's website. You may also subscribe to our newsletter for regular updates. Thank you for joining us today, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Akshat.